Hey there, guys! I definitely didn't forget my YouTube channel existed for the last 4 months. No, I ended up getting my first job, and then finals happened. And long story short, the idea of making a video made me want to fall over, so it just hasn't happened. I'm sorry about the wait, but no way in hell was I gonna miss my Pride Month video. I put up a poll in my Discord asking what kind of video I should make this month, and the result was people wanted a video about one of my, LGBTQIA+ characters. Now, I do have quite a few options to pick from, but I feel that there's only one character I can choose. My favorite, bestest boy, Icefall. Icefall has made quite a few appearances on this channel in Speedpaints and other such videos, but this will be the first one where I actually talk about his life and his story. I originally created Icefall for the government-assigned Warrior Cat challenge circulating around YouTube after the release of the new Warrior Cats website. Icefall was the name the website assigned me, and I designed a character based on that name. I then made him into a proper character in a roleplay community I co-owned called The New Legacy. I didn't really design him with a storyline in mind, but he evolved over time into one of the most important characters I had, both from a favoritism standpoint and a story standpoint. In the New Legacy community, the founders came up with 4 unique clans: Pine Clan, Rock Clan, Wolf Clan, and Meadow Clan. Icefall was made as a simple warrior of Meadow Clan. Another unique aspect of the community is the carefully restricted use of powers. Approximately 75% of the characters in the community have some kind of ability, simply as a means of spicing up the story. Now that we have some kind of background for our world, let's get into Icefall's story. Icekit was born in the middle of a harsh leaf bare to his mother Moonglow and father Falconfeather. The snow almost constantly covered the ground of Meadow Clan territory, and prey was scarce. It was one of the worst times to bring a kit into the world, but Icefall was born strong. He had no litter mates to speak of, so his mother and father doted on him all of the time, making sure to keep him far from the cold. However, no matter how close an eye you keep on a kit is still a kit, and kits cause problems. Late one night, a curious little ice kit snuck out of the nursery and went for an adventure through the rabbit hills by Meadow Clan camp. He hadn't been out for long when the dark clouds overhead began dumping snow. The wind picked up and howled across the territory, covering everything in layer upon layer of freezing cold snow and ice. It was a death sentence. When Moonglow awoke and found her little boy missing, the camp was whipped into a frenzy as they frantically began searching for the missing kitten. The snow had tapered off, but nobody had much hope that they would find him alive. It was still freezing cold, and he was young. He didn't know where to go or what to do to keep warm. However, to everyone's surprise, they found Icekit curled up sleeping peacefully right there on the ground. He was surrounded in freezing snow, and it was dusted on top of him like a white blanket. However, he didn't shiver, or even so much as feel cold to the touch when the search patrol woke him up. That was how his power was realized. Icekit was immune to extreme temperatures. Snow and ice didn't freeze him, and fire couldn't burn him. No matter how hot or cold it got, the Tom felt nothing but a comfortable temperature. This power proved most useful during the cold days of Leafbear and blistering heat of Greenleaf, as he could go hunt and patrol when the rest of the clans were trapped away from the intense weather. As an apprentice and eventual warrior, Icefall became a valued and respected member of Meadow Clan. However, he was lonely. He was born with no siblings, and his father passed on before he became an apprentice. His mother was kind and showered him in affections, but he struggled to connect with the rest of his clanmates. It wasn't that he disliked his clanmates or didn't want to make friends, he just had a hard time reaching out or matching the energy of his playful and fun-loving clan. When the other apprentices were off playing games and lounging in the sun, Icefall was asking his mentor to show him new ways to hunt and fight. As a result of the intense training, as well as genetics, Icefall grew fast. He was built strong, outgrowing most of the warriors in his clan before he became one himself. He had broad shoulders and thick fur, deep blue eyes, and wide flat paws. Much to his dismay, as a young warrior he began to draw attention from a few cats in his clan. It was nothing intense, but just enough flirting with him to make him incredibly uncomfortable. It wasn't that Icefall had no interest in creating a family and having kits and a mate. The problem was that he had no interest in she-cats at all. Instead, he found his attention drawn to the Toms. Something about them just made his stomach twist and his heart pound. He wasn't very old when he realized that this wasn't the norm. His clanmates and mother all had been making comments about his future, about finding a beautiful she-cat and having kits. Icefall couldn't argue with them. He didn't try to explain that he couldn't care less about the female cats. How could he? All around him, he saw his clanmates partaking in this expected part of life, finding joy in each other and creating families. Instead, he threw himself headfirst into his duties and focused instead on becoming the greatest warrior he could be. He was the head of patrols every day, reliable and strong as he defended his territory against the other clans and other threats. As he grew older, his pelt became laced in scars, evidence of his dedication and bravery to the front line of defense of Meadow Clan. Icefall settled into his role as the stoic and quiet defender, having no close friends to speak of. He took great care of his mother upon her retirement to the Elder's Den, visiting her every day and listening to her ramblings. She had developed fairly severe memory loss at an early age, relying on her clan and son for her care. Icefall did find himself taking on a strange role in his free time. He would sit near the nursery and play with the kits sometimes, rolling moss balls for them or pretending to be whatever fantasy enemy the kits decided to fight that day. The kits got a kick out of play fighting with the biggest warrior in the clan, and Icefall got to indulge in the parental desire to teach and nurture that he usually ignored. The queens were grateful for the few minutes of peace, and he was able to shatter a little of the cold, heartless assumptions about him that had developed in his warriorhood. One night, Icefall was out hunting alone, taking advantage of his abilities to traipse through the snow-covered territory and hunt the nocturnal prey. He pursued a young rabbit across the ground, the world around him fading to a blur as he focused on the chase. By the time he caught it, he realized he had strayed into Pine Clan territory. Cursing under his breath, Icefall quickly picked up the rabbit and tried to get back to Meadow Clan territory as soon as possible. However, luck was not on his side. A ginger Pine Clan warrior named Squirrelshade leapt out of the bushes and began to taunt Icefall. He poked fun at him, calling him names like Rabbit Chaser, and made fun of Meadow Clan's flower-loving and lazy stereotypes until Icefall dropped the rabbit and crouched to fight. After a short scuffle and back-and-forth banter, Squirrelshade was overpowered and surrendered, smirking instead of being upset over the encounter. He hadn't even been angry that Icefall accidentally trespassed, or that he had been beaten in the fight. Instead, Squirrelshade thanked him for easing his boredom, welcoming Icefall to trespass again with a wink. Needless to say, Icefall didn't get much sleep that night. That encounter made his stomach fill with butterflies and his paws restless. Squirrelshade had been funny and witty, unintimidated by Icefall's demeanor and reputation. He knew how to push his buttons, but he also figured out just how to calm him down too. Icefall was in trouble. Serious trouble. The next morning he found himself back at the border, marigold in his jaws and praying that Squirrelshade would come back. He felt guilty about how hard he had bitten him. That was certainly the only reason he was back looking for him. Yep, that was the only reason. Squirrelshade appeared through the trees, only barely limping as he crossed the border to see him. The two spoke again, much more subdued, but not without the teasing. By the time Squirrelshade bounded away to rejoin his patrol, Icefall was practically shaking with joy. There was just something about the Pine Clan warrior, something that he'd been searching for his entire life. There was a sense of warmth, belonging, and acceptance. That feeling only grew each time they met in the cover of darkness. Icefall never crossed that line, only making it seem as if they were meeting as friends. However, all that changed when a disease swept across all 4 clans. Many cats were lost, and in all the madness, neither Tom was able to meet and determine if the other was okay. It was beginning to drive Icefall mad, when the Meadow Clan deputy grew ill and died. That night, in the light of Star Clan, Icefall was named the new deputy of Meadow Clan. When the disease had run its course and things settled down, Icefall raced to the Pine Clan border. It had been moons since he'd seen Squirrelshade. Rather than time making him forget about the ginger warrior, it had only made his heart grow fonder. He hadn't been reported dead at the most recent gathering, but he also hadn't been there. Until Icefall had Squirrelshade's smell in his nose and his smile in his eyes, the feeling of fear wouldn't ease up. Squirrelshade was there. He was okay. Their meetings began to change in nature. Where most of their conversations used to be joking around and poking fun at one another, now it was more serious. They divulged in their fears, details about their lives, and drifted closer and closer until they spent the entire night sitting pressed to one another. Each Tom became a beacon of comfort to the other, and they couldn't go long at all before meeting up again. Icefall did his best to balance these meetings with his responsibilities, not going out to meet the Pine Clan warrior if he found himself too tired to go on patrol that evening. He really tried to make sure that nothing hindered his role as deputy, not even Squirrelshade. His clan still came first. During one of their meetings, the 2 warriors heard small whines in the bushes. Further investigation revealed a small kitten on the side of the road, half starved and shivering with cold. They didn't hesitate. Squirshade wrapping around the kitten comfortingly, while Icefall found him something to eat. Together they took care of him, quietly reassuring the abandoned kit. For a moment, Icefall could see a vision clear as day in his mind. He and Squirshade raising this little Tom together, watching him grow up with both the warriors as his parents. It made him purr to himself. Both Toms agreed to take the kit to MeadowClan, as Icefall being deputy would make it easier to convince the leader to take him in. Icefall bid Squirshade a warm farewell as he gently picked up the kit and carried him back to his home. It didn't take Maplestar, the MeadowClan leader, much convincing to take in the little kitten. Icefall was allowed to name him Bouncekit and was promised to one day become his mentor. The kitten was thankfully old enough to eat solid foods and adapted to clan life quite well under Icefall's careful watch. Icefall divulged the truth about his discovery at the kit's insistence, unable to keep such a major secret away from his little boy. He promised that once he was an apprentice, he'd take Bouncekit with him to meet Squirshade. Once Bouncepaw was old enough to make the journey, Icefall kept true to his word and led his son to their regular meeting place. Squirshade was overjoyed to meet him, and together he and Icefall sat down and spoke happily to their son. Again, Icefall was overwhelmed with the vision of the three of them as a proper family, and in his moment of joy, he asked Squirshade to join him and Bouncepaw in MeadowClan. After serious contemplation, Squirshade refused, insisting that he had to stay behind for his mother and littermates. Icefall understood. Unfortunately, the Pine Clan patrol that was secretly listening to the whole exchange was far less understanding. The pair had been discovered, and each was forced to return back to their respective clans. Icefall had to reveal his secret to Maplestar, facing the betrayal-stricken Calico She-Cat with nothing but bitter shame. Icefall was allowed to remain deputy, but Bouncepaw was reassigned to another warrior to be his mentor, and Icefall was not to leave camp alone. To say that this discovery was devastating would be a massive understatement. He had lost the Tom he loved, lost the right to mentor his son, and lost the trust of his leader and clanmates. Maplestar kept everything as quiet as possible, not wanting her deputy's mistake to shake the stability of the clan, but something like that wouldn't stay hidden for more than a day or two. A few tension-filled moons later, and things had mostly fallen back into normal, for everyone except Icefall. He was struggling. He would perform his duties, make sure his mother and son were alright, and retreat to some shadowy corner of the camp to stare seemingly at nothing. Finally, on a late-night patrol, he snapped, begged his clanmates to allow him to sneak away for a few minutes, just to see if Squirshade was there, just to see him one more time. To his shock, they agreed. He bounded away with all the joy of a kid racing to the border. He crouched down, praying to every star overhead that he would be there. His prayers were met, and a familiar ginger head peeked through the undergrowth. Icefall was about to launch over the road that served as the border when Squirshade called out and stopped him. As Squirshade spoke, Icefall felt all the hope in his soul drain away. Squirshades' message was plain as day. They could not meet ever again. I understand. I've been wanting to see you for so long after that incident too, but we can't risk doing this anymore. I was lucky enough to avoid a dire punishment, and I'm not sure about you, but it looks like you were in the same situation as well. He paused as he could feel himself fighting for what to say next. I really love you, Icefall, but we are on thin ice. I really don't want the worst to happen to you, or even Bouncepaw in the long run. I shouldn't have even come out here. And with that, Squirshade turned away. The first time he had told him he loved him was also the last time they would meet. Icefall's heart shattered into pieces that night, and he made his way back to his patrol with tears flooding uncontrollably down his face. He didn't tell his clanmates what happened, but it didn't take a genius to figure out. The patrol started to move on with their duties, when in the distance they heard a sudden cacophony of screams in the direction of MeadowClan camp.